Hello, Barflies, and welcome to RT Sidebar, where we sit down with a respiratory leader each week and talk about leadership. This week, we have the RT director of Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, Christa Sala, on passing the torch, how she assumed leadership after a previous director who had been in the seat for almost 40 years. There's a lot to learn. This is RT Sidebar. Stay tuned.
All right, everyone. As always, welcome to another episode of RT Sidebar. I'm Matt Pavlichko here with the doctor himself, Dr. Butler. Hello, Dr. Butler, and Anna Hayes, our friend and herder of cats. As always, today we're with Christa, and I'm excited to talk to Christa because Christa, new role in an RT as an RT director, but lifelong leader, lifelong learner, lifelong educator. And she grew up in the same place where Jonathan and I had to travel all over the country to be leaders. That's just what we had to do. So, Christa, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Jonathan, Anna, any welcome messages before we dive into the sidebar today?
Welcome, Christa. I can't wait to ask a few questions for a new leader, especially someone that took over for a director that'd been there 39 years. That's got to be tough.
Thank you.
Awesome. Anna, any words of wisdom before we jump into this?
No, Barflies, we've heard you. We are going to try and make this 30 minutes. Okay, that's our goal today. So Christa has some nuggets to share, and I will pass the mic to her and Matt.
That's awesome. So Christa, I've been watching this show. My boss, Jessica Whittle, got me involved with this, and I can't get over it. It's called Succession. It's on HBO. It's fantastic. I love it. And it's all about this family that's going to take over this business. And it reminded me of you when we first started talking to you, is that you grew up in this family at Vanderbilt. You grew up as a leader, as an educator, and you kind of groomed behind somebody that's been a leader for a really long time. And then the reins were handed over. What did it feel like the first time you were the director at Vandy Children's?
Scary, to be honest.
That's usually how it works. So tell me what it's like. What was your mindset as you walked into the door? Hey, these aren't people you don't know. You know them. You know their children. You know their families. You know where they go on vacation. So talk us through in detail, like kind of what was your plan when you walked in that door?
Yeah, well, first of all, as you mentioned, there was a pretty great plan in place for me, unbeknownst to me, throughout my journey. I've been here 18 years in some capacity, and as you said, I've taken on many different roles in the interim. So my first day here at a large academic medical center, my educator, who saw more education potential in me than I had faith in myself at the time, right? I'm scared to death, new graduate, don't have any confidence in my skills at all. Walk in the door, and the first thing he says is not hello. It's not, hey, nice to meet you, Christa. It is, you are now part of a large academic medical center, and our number one goal is to teach the future clinicians of every type. And if you don't want to do that, then you're probably in the wrong place. So let's just lay that groundwork right now. And I was like, wow, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't want to be able to tell anybody else how to do it. So I was very intimidated. And I think every time I've assumed a new role, felt a little bit in that same uncomfortable feeling. But also, as you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to develop relationships here. And I think that was a great part of the plan, because it wasn't just me making my own path. It was all of these people mentoring me up and helping me get there.
Did you do any reflection when you got home after that first day and they dropped that bomb on you? Because that's a lot to process.
Yeah, like maybe I should take that door open. Could I be good at it? Would I be good at it? I don't know. But slowly I realized that that person had, like I said, more faith in me and saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. So through little tidbits of time spent with all of the leaders in the area, I was able to take those pieces of information and build onto my own knowledge base. And it's easy to teach somebody our field when you're passionate about it and you really enjoy what you do. So it was nice.
So Christa, and we know a little bit about your background. Did it shape you? That first day you were told, hey, you need to educate. You know, you're not just a respiratory therapist, but then you became an educator. So how did that evolve? You know, how did you evolve into academia then?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that first day, I always wanted to be the best at what I was doing. So I knew I needed to learn it at a different level, especially if I had to teach it to somebody else. So they started me off teaching students, and then I slowly realized I loved that and went into a professor role for a time period. I taught at the local bachelor's program, and then from that point moved into an education role in the department here at Vanderbilt Children's.
So as you grew, you became so at some point you came back to the hospital. So you always had a little bit of the hospital. You never really kind of left the bedside. You went to academia, but then you started becoming a leader. What did that look like when you're coming back? Because Jonathan and I talk about it, and I know Jonathan well. Jonathan has literally done everything I think in the hospital, from housekeeping. I know he was a housekeeper for a while, to registration, to a chief operating officer. But at some point, there's a piece that kind of solidifies who you are. So when you are taking a leadership position in the hospital, you came back as an educator, correct? Or as a clin spec?
Close. So I came back originally as a member of the neonatal and pediatric transport team.
Okay.
So I had mastered my skill set in our role in the different intensive care units that we have here, and I had not branched out into a transport role, and so I was able to learn different aspects of the job and really learn a total picture of the patient as we had to bring them to our hospital. And then from that knowledge base was able to transition into an educator role,
more of a leadership style position. Yeah. So as you grew as a leader, what was the what type of strategy did you have? Like, what type of leader would you describe yourself as?
I would describe myself as somebody that wants to provide consistent, transparent messaging, and I think that has been something that's been clear to me. If you can't provide the whole picture to others in the department, it leaves lots of room for them to have to fill in the gaps, and not by any fault of anybody, but simple things that I learned. Like one time I sent a meeting request, right, for our neonatal intensive care unit team. And I had always asked for agenda items. What do you guys want to talk about? Like, what's on your mind? What do we need to hammer through? But this one time I sent it in the invite, the same request, but in the invite, and they didn't see it. And so for probably a month after the invite went out, everybody had been talking about how this meeting might be crazy. Like, what is Christa going to say? Like, it must be bad. And because she always asks for agenda items from us, and she didn't ask for agenda items. And I was like, I had no idea, right, that all of this is happening around me, and just nobody had asked. They were scared to ask. And one day I'm sitting down talking to somebody about the meeting. I was like, yeah, I haven't had any agenda items, submitted. So, and they were like, oh, we thought it was going to be really bad. And I was like, why would you have thought that? And they were like, because you didn't ask. But I just didn't do it in the way they needed that information. So they had filled in the gaps that weren't even true. So I realized, oh, I have to do that. Like, I learned not to do that again, to be more transparent and clear in my messaging so that I didn't make that mistake again.
Yeah, that's management that you have to learn on the go. But it's also respectful to the staff, right? I always felt that, when I was at staff, if I got told, do it because I told you so, if I do it at all, it's going to be the worst possible, quality work that I could possibly do because I felt disrespected. So I always would explain all the details, for example, if I was going to change something, I'd explain why. Regulation change, accreditation requirements, this, and it educates them as well so that they can speak to it and amongst each other. So that is a good way to handle that. But one of the hard things for all new leaders is the first time you have to say no, because you're a friend of these people, right? You've had lunches with them, dinners with them, drinks after work, and then they're like, "Ooh, my friend is in leadership now. This is awesome. I'm going to get all the vacations I want. I'm going to be able to get the schedule I want." What was that like? Because I know I was in that role, and it was very tough. What's going through your mind there, and how quickly did that happen to you? Because I know it happened. It happens to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Those relationships do change, and some for good, and some for a challenging path, right? So I think just trying to explain and make them understand where you're coming from. You have to be consistent across the board. And I think that the staff really understand that. And if you try to lay it out that way, and that not everybody can have 4th of July off, or whatever the day is, like somebody has to be here. So we have to do it in a fair manner. I think they tend to understand that. So probably just direct communication, face to face, is the best.
Christa, I love that with that story. It shows something you didn't really think the staff noticed or cared about, and they notice everything.
Yes.
Why is consistent communication so important with your staff? Like, when you assumed leadership, which was like post-COVID world, why was that really important culturally?
Yeah, because there are so many questions. So post-COVID, all of the respiratory departments were suffering some of the same same situations, right? So our workload had increased. The PTSD for our staff members definitely increased. There are a lot of feelings that people had to deal with, both personally and professionally. So communication is really important, but also really hard. So I can't say we perfected it, to be honest. We try our best every single day, but the truth of the matter is we have staff that work 24 hours a day, right? So we may not always see the same people every single day. So it's really hard to make sure you have 120 people moving in the same direction sometimes, but we do the best we can.
When I was like a young buck lieutenant, like a butter bar is the term. So you're bright-eyed and like really excited. You have all these ideas, or at least I did. I met my soldiers while deployed, and so when you meet your soldiers deployed, you have to go get qualified at a range, and I'm just like so excited. And so we're at this range. It's in the desert. I'm exhausted. Like, I went from high energy to like no energy, and so like consistency, none. Like, they were like, "What's up?" She was high, now she's low. Like, what happened there? And a master sergeant pulled me aside, and he goes, "Soldiers need consistency." And most of my soldiers actually happened to come from homes that were not consistent for them. Actually, like about half of my soldiers came from foster homes, which is like really interesting too. And I don't have consistency. Like, no, I'm high energy. I mean, it depends like what I eat that day. Like, did I have an apple? Like, what happened? So how do you maintain, and how did you learn self-awareness? Because if I can't have consistency, at least I had awareness to say, yo, y'all, it's not you. I need coffee, whatever the situation is. How did you learn to maintain self-awareness?
Yeah, I think that is a great point that you just brought up. I think leaning into the relationships that I already had built, and our staff. Like, there is not a shortage of opinions for people in our profession.
Very true.
Which is great. Like, and I tell everybody when our executive leadership team wants to sit down and talk with our staff, I'm like, well, I mean, they're not going to hold back, and I don't want them to hold back.
Wow.
They need to tell what's on their mind, and so I think just encouraging that atmosphere, and then also really sitting down, like you said, and hearing staff out.
And having like a regular schedule, likely, and how you were doing that, like the agenda. Were there other activities that you implemented? Like another example, in the military, we had a battle rhythm. So I published a battle rhythm, and it's basically like what I'm going to do Monday. This is the meetings I have. This is where I'll be. This is what I expect of you. Again, military is very different scenarios here, but I'm curious, like what other activities you might have implemented to help provide that transparency and consistency.
Well, one thing we actually really had to do is take a look at what our department structure looked like, because it had changed quite a bit. So we needed more than just myself sitting down one-on-one with 120 people and sending the same message. And we had a leadership group that had been pulled in different directions for the last couple of years, right? So we had to pull our supervisors into bedside assignments, and so they weren't able to really lead the staff in the manner they wanted to or should do. So we really wanted to make sure we set the stage for that, and then lay the ground for all of our teams sending the same message over and over again. So we do have routine meetings where we sit down. We have onboarded a lot of staff, right? So we are really excited to say we're on the upswing of this hump. But as we do that, we realized the onboarding of so many staff members, we really need to make sure we know where we have 30 of them, by the way, in orientation at some point. So we have to figure out exactly where every single one of these individuals is and where we might be missing support. So that's what we really have worked hard on in the last year is providing that new structure or support system. So just to give you some background information, we had not changed the structure in our department in many years, really, truthfully, since I've been here, and the department had doubled since then.
Oh, wow.
So we were about 50 to 60 FTEs when I started, if I look back at the historical data, and we're about 117 now. So it had doubled, and our support system for staff had not doubled. And not only that, but we had also pulled the supervisors in bedside assignments. So we actually kind of went backwards just a little bit for providing support for everybody and also sending consistent messages. So that's what we have tried to implement.
This is kind of what I've been trying. I've been waiting to ask this question. So you're following a director that's been there 39 years. I'm assuming you have staff that haven't even been alive for 39 years.
Yeah.
So when you change something, they literally mean it. This is the way we've always done it. Right? Because they know nothing else. If they were a new grad, started there under the former director, that is the only way they've ever done it. So, that is a feat in itself. I mean, how did you start that process and then work it through? Because that's huge.
I think, yeah, absolutely. That is huge. And it is difficult to follow somebody who has known the system here at Vanderbilt, right, for 39 years. She was amazing. And I learned a lot of information from my previous director, but she knew everybody to go to and exactly what to do. And so, I mean, that's a huge learning curve, but you're right. There are some people that, I mean, have only been in the field a couple of years, so I don't want to age myself. So those staff members, don't understand what it was like before. So I think just really trying to emphasize doing what you say and meaning what you say. And I think that's the key is we got to a point where we were now giving them more support from our leadership team, but they also didn't completely understand that because they're like, well, they were working at the bedside with me 2 weeks ago. Why are you pulling them out of that role now? And so like, I need help doing these treatments or whatever. And we needed to show them a bigger picture. What their goal is to help you achieve your goals. So if you want to advance on our career ladder, like they need to develop that path for you. They need to put these steps in place and show you what your potential is. And I think we've slowly made some progress to help them see that.
How did you like educate though? Did you go to every shift? Was it just a memo? Like how did you get that verbalization out to everyone? Because we all have those people that only work nights on weekends, and those are the hardest ones to get to because it impacts your life to communicate to them. How are you going into? Are you coming in at night? Are you coming in early? What's that look like?
Well, a little bit of all of the above, but also really tapping into the leadership team that we have built here already. Like they're the backbone of the department, really. They're the ones that there's a supervisor here every single hour of every day. So if I can make sure they understand fully the direction that we're going, they can also help spread that message. But also, yeah, I mean, we do need to touch those people that work weekend nights. And so just coming in and chatting with them for a few minutes actually gives you a huge amount of information.
Sure. And just sending a memo, right? It's easy to send an email.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to do this today. Or here, it sounds every time we talk to you, Chris, we unpackage some more and more about you. And I love it. Like your communication is the hallmark of it sounds like it's a hallmark of your leadership. You're so deliberate with it. And I think that, as you transition from filling really big shoes to now you're putting your feet in there, that you've made a very deliberate, precise, thoughtful way to transition. It's interesting because I was going to ask the same question, John, because I struggled. Night shift weekend. I have a couple really great people that like I had like the best night shift at my last job, and they kept telling me we have no idea what's going on, man. I'm like, but I put it in a memo, and they're like, really? Can you just come in? Yeah. No, because my buddy was an early bird, so he'd get there like 5 a.m. and leave at 3, and I get there at 8 a.m. and leave at 5. Well, we work 12-hour shifts, which means I only saw day shift, and like it took me a long time for the light bulb to go off. Like, duh, man, But like, I love how deliberate you are with this, and so deliberate with your team. Because the why matters. The why really matters.
Right. Well, I mean, they taught me, so I can't lie. I didn't dream up this information at all. And I learned from many mistakes. One time we had this staff member, we wanted to clean out the blood gas lab. And there was this old rickety desk with this computer. I swear there were 10 layers of dust on the computer. Nobody had touched it in years. I don't think there was gross stuff in the drawers of the desk, and we were like, this room needs like a renovation. So a couple of us decided to go in and redo the whole lab, and it was not received well by a couple individuals. Most people didn't care, to be honest, but there were 2 individuals, and one very specifically that had some choice words for me one day as I came in, and actually there was this silly piece of tape on the floor that nobody could get up off the floor. So I'm sitting there scraping this tape off the floor. It was kind of ridiculous, but trying to get the tape off the floor, clean up the lab, and they're like, who moved the freaking desk? And I was like, just keep scraping, Christa, because it's red. And I was like, I know I didn't even look up because I'm like, what in the world? And it's like 5 a.m. So I came in, it was just night shift. I knew I could get in there easy. So I just keep scraping. I'm like, I don't know what her problem is. But she was like, yeah, who did this? I used that computer. I'm like, there were not even fingerprints on this dust, right? So like, sure you didn't, but I didn't say that. It's funny because we became really good friends after that scenario. But she, I realized a lot from her through this little interaction is that she wasn't really that mad, probably, about the desk being gone. There had to be something more. So I just keep scraping. And I learned that her support system was going to be changed. And not only did something big in her life change that was kind of unrelated to work, her best friend was moving to a different location, and she worked with her every single day. And that was her last shift she had to work, right? But we did this lab change at the same time. So we rocked her world because she had this life change, and then we moved to desk. But I was like, there has to be a little bit something else in this situation. So eventually she told me, hey, yeah, it's her last shift, and I've been crying all night. I've been upset. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, did you guys take pictures together? And she's like, no, why would we do that? I look like a crazy person. I've been crying all night. And I was like, well, in 10 years, you're probably not going to care. Like, you're going to remember the last night you guys worked together, and she's been the best relationship you've had here, and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, well, it's 6 o'clock now in the morning. She's not even available. I was like, I bet she's available. It's her last shift. Like, let's go take some pictures out in front of the hospital or something like that. And so just trying to break the ice a little bit and understand maybe where that person was coming from. I realized some of those things that might seem very minor to me, replacing a desk or whatever, might be a huge change for somebody else. So maybe preparing them ahead of time, or also, like you guys said, getting some buy-in by including them in the process in the beginning, instead of, hey, there's a whole new room layout where I'm sitting. So just, getting their input. They're the ones that have to live in the space. I didn't have to live in there. So
Krista,
yeah.
I love that story. Oh my
I do too.
gosh. And how
That's
you
a great
met
story.
her with like empathy and said, let's get some photos and let me come and take it and let me like celebrate you and celebrate this relationship. Like, I was talking to a colleague and I was like, hey, could you send me a photo of you by the bedside? And she was like, I don't have any. And
Oh,
it shocked me. Like, she didn't have one. And anyways, that is such a charming story. Like, wow.
yeah.
Wow.
I would have been guilty of that. I for sure would have changed out all the chairs, and if it looked bad,
yeah.
I'm cleaning the house, and I wouldn't have said anything. I would have been very, very guilty of that.
I know.
Absolutely.
How many of us would be like, hey, new rain is here. Sorry. And also, you're on your hands and knees at 5 a.m., like scrubbing off tape. Like, you were so hands on, like, literally hands on leadership. Like, wow. But yeah, you could have been like, you could respond the opposite in that moment and be like, sorry, man. You could have called her out, and you didn't do that. And you said, let's celebrate you.
Yeah, I would say what I've learned so much from you, Chris, the last few times we've talked to you, like your leadership style is being a human. That's what I get. You're a human and you care about people and you care about their feelings and how they're going to react. And that's what makes you a good leader, because you're just a good human.
Well, I'll be honest, above all, that it would be my hope. So
Oh,
like,
I love it.
Krista, we have another like last question here. Okay, if you could go back in time, whether that's like Krista straight out of school or Krista before you knew you were assuming this role in leadership, what would you tell yourself? What did you wish you knew? Yeah, what would you have done differently?
yeah, I think the only thing, or the biggest thing that I wish I would have known, is to give myself a little bit of grace. Like, I think a lot of people are a little bit of perfectionists, right? Like, you want to be the best, you want to do the best you can, you want to be everything. And it's really hard. And I think people understand if you're just open and honest with them. I don't have all the answers. Not a single day do I walk in here and have all the answers. but I try my darndest to get them for them. So I think that's it. It's just probably not being so hard on yourself and realizing you have a bigger team. Like, they can help you. Like, if you don't have the answers, somebody else on your team probably does.
I think that's beautiful. And, JB, Krista, and I have been therapists for a long time. And being a therapist is about perfection. We hold ourselves to that standard. And then when you become a leader, it's hard to be perfect because it's a new skill. It's a new everything. And giving yourself some grace helps you grow. Like, it's okay to fail, but you're so afraid to fail as a leader. Like, I knew that was like, Krista, I probably would have said the same thing. If I would have changed anything, I would have gave myself a little bit of grace too. So, oh my God, this has been a great episode, by the way. Just feels so good right now. I feel so warm in my heart. Krista, thank you so much for all. What a great episode. JB, any takeaways you got today? Because
I mean, I'll go in a little bit deeper on yours, just thinking about it. And I was the same way. I was like, I can't make a mistake. Everything's got to be perfect. And, I would just stress myself out until I finally realized that, yeah, you can make a mistake. Where you fail is if you make the same mistake over and over again, but everyone's allowed to make the mistake. That's part of learning. I would say that most of the things I learned most were the ones that I screwed up first. And knowing that and being okay with it, as long as you're open and honest, right? Because it's the cover up that gets you, not the mistake. As long as you don't cover it up, you're open and honest, you're going to be fine. But that's a very difficult concept when you're new and you feel like the whole world is on your shoulders and you're having to do it by yourself. But once you start realizing, no, I have a team, I can make mistakes, I can try something new, and it's going to be okay. But if it doesn't work, then I just won't do it again. Then you just grow and grow and grow. And, pretty soon now you have 2 departments and 3 departments and 4 departments. And you just kind of grow like a flower. I mean, it's if I say it, well, Matt's going to laugh at me anyway, but it's a beautiful thing, right? To grow in management. It really is.
It is. Captain Hayes, what did you learn from this episode?
Ooh, squirming, consistency. I know I'm squirming just because that's something I so need to work on, and that's a hard one. That for me, yeah. I always take on too much, and it's really hard to prepare for those meetings and to have the notes and to stay present and to be like consistent. Like, that is so hard and so important. So that this is a great reminder. Like, I feel very much refreshed on that. Like, my compass says consistency. I need to work on that.
I will tell you, Chris, that you got us back on track today. Like, it's been a little rough, last couple of weeks, but you guys kind of got us back on track. Consistency, passion, learning, and being a human. That's what I felt today. I think this has been a great episode. Krista, thank you so much for being on. I'm going to hand, Anna, do you have calls to action or anything that you'd like to jump on?
Next podcast you'll see is on mental health, on professional burnout and what to do, both as a leader and as an individual. So we're excited to dive into mental health, and Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month happens to be September. So you'll see some episodes here soon on that very, very important topic. And I would love to kick it off with some shout outs here. Actually, so Krista, we'd like to end the episode with shout outs to the listeners. There's a link in the show notes for you to give a shout out to someone that's a promotion, anniversary, graduation, engagement, whatever. We would love to celebrate you. Just fill out that form and we'll give you a shout out on the pod. So to June and Henry Hank the Tank Fitzpatrick in Long Island, shout out to you.
Krista, how about you? Who's your shout out to this week?
Yeah, honestly, I would like to give a shout out to all of my mentors, because there are a ton of them, as well as the people in my department, because I think you guys said it best when you mentioned that they're really the ones that have grown me. So
Oh, Chris, that's so awesome. My shout this week is actually to my wife, Heather. She gave a huge presentation at Epic yesterday and she killed it. She brought home like coconuts. It was very weird. I have no idea why, but like she did such a good job. I just want to say congrats to my wife, Heather. JB.
All right. Happy birthday shout out to John Don. And then my personal shout out is to my co-host Matt and Anna. Got to spend a lot of time with you guys last week. Loved it. You remind me of why I do this.
Oh, he is getting mushy today, Dr. Butler.
Christa had me in my feels, and so it's just now, it was a trickle. Now it's a gushing.
I was tearing up. Like, I don't know. That story just hit. It hit.
Yeah.
Chris, it's been a pleasure.
Vapotherm does not practice medicine or provide medical services or advice. Any clinical recommendations provided herein are solely those of the speaker. Practitioners should refer to the full indications for use and operating instructions of any products referenced before use. The team behind the sidebar are employees of Vapotherm, and our guests